Welcome to the Pump and Dump channel for another weekly update. This week again talking about the shipping sector. So in this video here we can see first of all again the fuel oil prices. Fuel oil is down generally. They're down more on the very light sulfur fuel oils than on the high sulfur fuel oils as a percentage, but the main reason why they're down is the oil price is down, and the reason why the IMO compliant fuels are down more than the high sulfur fuel oil is of course because the vessels, they don't need to use these yet, so they're still trying to get on, buy on the high sulfur fuel oil. But I think we're going to see vessels starting to pump up on this one more frequently and sooner, and that will probably drive them apart again, because the reality is if a ship is like going from from Europe to the USA, it takes probably a few days to get over here, and if they load up on fuel here and they get to the US, and then the US says, well, you need to be using this low sulfur fuel oil, by the time you get here and you get there and you're not using it, you're in trouble. So vessels that are going the long way here, they're going to have to already start buying the low sulfur fuel oils, and that will kind of lead to this the price differentials widening again in the near term. So I had talked about last week how the whole idea of using scrubbers, the thesis behind the cost savings, was going to come into question probably in the February window, because you can see how the fuel price, the high sulfur fuel price, is converging towards the very low sulfur fuel price, and therefore the benefits are going to look like they're questionable and that they're not going to materialize the way that the managements who installed the scrubbers initially thought. And this news story here is kind of, it's not about what I said, but it is kind of along that same line, and we can see here that in this article they talked about how the fuel oil was the main concern for ship owners, and basically they talk about some fears and then they say none of this has happened so far. So what they're saying is that all these fears were not justified. The fears are lack of availability of very low sulfur fuel oil, massive breakdowns of main engines from poor blends, meaning that if the refinery do a bad job, the engines could have some problems. Another way to have poor blends is like I suggested, you mix 2 parts of high sulfur fuel oil with 15 parts of ultralight to get to 0.5, and then stir it around with a spoon. That could probably cause some issues. Another more realistic issue to get breakdowns of main engines would be if a vessel did not clean out its tanks before loading up on very low sulfur fuel oil, and then they poured in that and they have like 0.55% sulfur in their fuel, and then they have to kind of use ultralight sulfur fuel oil to blend it down to get to 0.5, and then after mixing it with a spoon they could have some problem with the engines. That is kind of a reality. I mean, it's very likely that some ship owners are going to arrive in a port with half a tank full of high sulfur fuel oil, and they want to just throw in a ton of ultralight sulfur fuel oil to down blend it and then mix it with a spoon, and they'll kind of cause some havoc on themselves. Then detentions from non-compliant vessels. Of course, some ship owners are trying to get by without complying. Either they don't know, or they're trying to just get by without buying the higher cost fuel oil and without fitting the scrubbers, and that could cause some supply disruptions. These 3 things here, real threats to the supply of vessels in the market that can actually operate. And yeah, they just say some warnings of the possible problems that many were expecting, and none of it has happened so far. So of course, as I mentioned last week, we can see here in the IMO website for the 2020 regulation, it says carriage of fuel oil for use on board of ships will be prohibited from the 1st of March 2020 if sulfur content exceeds 0.5%. So like I was saying, they don't need to use this this IMO 2020 compliant fuel until the 1st of March, so as long as they can get by, they won't use it. And that's why one of the main reasons why these fears have not materialized, because there's been no substantial reason for it to materialize. And here they say at least not to a wide spread extent, so it might be possible that there's actually been someone who has had some trouble with the fuel oil, the blend, and you know, not many are using it because they don't have to, and that could, like, in some way be a hint that it's actually it's already happening, but it's, you know, not to a wide extent. Um, these kind of news pieces, I always take them as a sign, a tell to buy something that I'm eyeing, that I'm looking at, because they give you factual information, but they don't give you the full picture. Missing this here, of course, is the full picture. And then you get situations like in DHT Holdings, it was trading between $8 and $7.60, I guess. And on Wednesday it cratered, and Thursday it was weak, and now Friday it's recovering, I think, because I saw a post of spot rates on VLCCs were up like I think 10-15% or so. So there is yeah, there is this window here where it was very low, and I bought a very little amount, unfortunately, only at 717. I bought more at 730, and I bought more at 750, and then the previous days I had bought some at 760, and yeah, and I kind of built my position, and now it's just a hold for the next couple of months, I guess, until we see the earnings, you know, blow out all the estimates, and we see this IMO 2020 regulations causing hopefully some supply disruptions. And DHT Holdings, they have like, what was it, 21 out of 26 vessels with scrubbers, so they will still be operating, and you know, that will kind of like look well. So the reason, of course, to buy this is also quite visible on the chart. You can see here there's this clear support line here. There is another support down here in the $6 area. I think there was a conversion of some convertible debt into stocks at around $6 and change. So there is kind of a floor here in the $6 range. I think it cannot exceed to the downside. I think if it does go to $6, it's a screaming buy, at least for me. The same thing with Tsakos Energy Navigation. We can see how it was coming down Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday it was, you know, in the toilets. This news article comes down, and what we can also see here is that let's take a 6-month chart. We can see here that it's holding at this 380 level. I had told myself that if it does come down to $4, I'd start buying, and I did. I built out these two positions to quite large percentages in my portfolio, because I see the writing is on the wall, let's say. It's a very clear buy for me, this whole situation with this news and the picture looking ahead. Getting to Nordic American Tankers, they of course had the same fate. They just cratered on Wednesday, and they've recovered since then. But Nordic American Tankers has some other attributes. They have, of course, a very strong Q4 with the spot rates being very high throughout the quarter. But if we look forward here, we can see fixtures, 50,000 for time charter for 50 days, up to 90 for 40, and then down here we can see the reality, 31,000 for 25 days. This is probably reflecting the IMO 2020 situation here. They're probably arguing with the client that they need to load up on very low sulfur fuel oil because they're getting too close to the March 1st window. So they ask more, and down here 25 days, that takes us like yeah, midway into February, and there they can use high sulfur fuel oil, and 31,000 is around their break-even cost from what I calculated a couple of weeks ago. But I think if they can, you know, get some of the debt down, they can lower their break-even costs, and then the you know, the rates that they're earning on the other fixtures will probably add quite a lot to the value of the company in the short term. This 8,000, of course, I kind of went over that in my video, is nonsense. But yeah, that's kind of where it's at. So my favorites are still these two here, not Nordic American Tankers. Of course, it can outperform these two here in the short term, but I don't think in the long term it will. And with that said, remember, this is not investment advice. If you have any questions, comments, or opinions, leave them in the comments section. If you like the content, don't forget to subscribe, and have a good day.